One of the greatest voices in sports believes in the Oklahoma Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, Jay, we're going to talk about the Trinidad Chambliss waiver and what it might mean for the Oklahoma Sooners. We're going to go through a couple more way too early polls that, hey, one of them really likes Oklahoma. Stewart Mandel, noted Oklahoma hater, might be coming around. And then we're going to discuss, we're going to start here, Jay, but he's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. Go check out his work over there covering all Oklahoma Sooners and more college football stuff. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire. Go read my work over there. All right. Scott Van Pelt, noted ESPN legend, was on the Dari Noka show, Jay, and he had a lot of high praise for the Oklahoma Sooners.
He did. He talked about how Oklahoma took the first step forward that they needed to. And you know, the big thing was Brent Venables walking to the season on the hot seat. You know, we talk about that ad nauseum. But because Brent was able to move into a 10-win range after going through such a gauntlet of a schedule, the toughest schedule, one of the toughest in college football, no chance the team can be successful in such a dire and tough and just strenuous and extreme. Yes, I'm throwing all the hyperboles out there for a reason, because that's what everybody kept saying. That, oh, I'll pick Oklahoma, but schedule's too much. They overcame it. 10 wins. 10 wins is a great step forward. And so SVP kind of pointed that out, that Oklahoma's now on the right track. Now he believes, and a few others have said it, they think that Oklahoma can take that next step, because usually the thing that holds you back, if it's something that you can control and get better at the next year, people are willing to buy into it. For Oklahoma, the defense has continuously gotten better, so we've got the consistency there. Offense is where we needed more consistency. And now that we get year two, this could be just like year two with Lebby at OC. Mm-hmm. Just the same way. I mean, truth be told, John, let's say it. Folks weren't all that on Dillon Gabriel his first year here in 2022. A lot of people were pretty like not sold. But year two, Dillon Gabriel gained a lot of respect. Think John Mateer can do it? I do.
Yeah, and I think so too. The guy is a tough player. He's just a good football player. I know there's things that you want him to improve on. There's things I want him to improve on this offseason, but I think he's got the mental makeup to go do that. To me, this is just a sign that the Sooners have convinced a lot of people, that Brent Venables, Jim Nagy have convinced people that, hey, they've got this thing on the right track. We believe it. The 10-2 regular season is the evidence of that. Yes, the Alabama game in the playoff didn't go your way. You had a lot of unforced errors that led to that loss, but you were playing, aside from that, you're playing pretty decent ball. And John Mateer, aside from the pick six, played a pretty good game. And so there's a lot to like about this roster going into 2026. There's a lot to like about the offense and the development that we're going to see out of the offensive line, out of your offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, who, as you've pointed out so many times over the last few weeks on this show, like the year two jump for quarterbacks and for offensive coordinators in the SEC is a real thing. It's a real phenomenon, whether it's, the guys over at Vanderbilt, whether it's Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. There have been a lot of guys that have had much better seasons in the second year. And I think a lot of people are going to look at Texas and Arch Manning and believe that he's going to be able to take his game up a notch as well. So why not John Mateer? Why can't this offense improve from what it was this year? They're going to. They've loaded up. They've been aggressive. They've attacked their needs in the portal, and they've made this offense better. The talent is much better right now than it was at the end of the season.
100%. Much better. You're starting to see everything come together. You're starting to see that mold of this offense. When we look through the roster itself, I think that's where fans need to go ahead and take a step back and really dig in, because that roster shows you, again, they love their recruits and they feel happy with what they have. We're playing with those players that are coming in with continued continuity in this system, understanding what needs to be done to be successful. And they're probably going to take advantage of it next season even more. The biggest question we still have is, will the offensive line be able to get the push to get the run game going?
Mm-hmm.
That's a question, but we'll see. Will the running backs take advantage of the holes that are created by the offensive line? Time will tell. Can John Mateer see wide open wide receivers, and will the new wide receivers get open? It's all on that side of the ball. But remember, when you had Dylan Gabriel year 2 in that system, and they just brought in some additional receivers, Andrew Anthony showed up and showed out until, unfortunately, towards ACL. We pray that doesn't happen again, but that's what happened. You got a great opportunity. They can get better. They'll be able to be able to take over games, right? Like, we want the offense to do more. I think that opportunity is right there in front of the team. Now they just got to grab it. The good thing is we don't feel doubtful about how that can be done. Because again, as I remind you, a lot of you were not sold on Dylan Gabriel year 1. Go read the comment section of any video talking about Dylan Gabriel in 2022. You know what? I'm going to find some and I'm going to screen cap them. I'm going to post them on here and we can talk about it. Then y'all can tell me I'm wrong. Because you won't be able to. I've seen them, John. I remember that era so vividly. It was a brutal year. Fans were not happy. Like, we need another quarterback. Let's see what happens next year. Get 10 wins. Still, you had people saying they want a new quarterback. But besides that, you looked better. That's what this team can do. So going from 6 to 10 with the new quarterback, whereas with Dylan Gabriel, you started at 6 with him and went to 10. You started at 10 with John. Now he needs to elevate and get us to 11.
Yeah, and you look at the points per game jump that Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Lebby made from year 1 to year 2 in the Big 12. They went from 32 points per game to 41 points per game. So if Oklahoma can increase by a similar margin, going from 24 points per game to 30, 32, that's going to put them on the right side of the win column a whole lot more, because you look at the Ole Miss game. I mean, they were in that game despite the offense not really doing a whole lot. They got a few big plays in that game that kept them in it, but they just couldn't find the offensive consistency. I expect that to be better. The Texas game, they were in that game except for that third quarter, and then the punt return for a touchdown that basically ignored 3 or 4 blocks in the back. They were in that game too. So this is a team that wasn't as far off, even from the 10-2, like from being 11-1, despite having an offense that didn't have a whole lot of consistency to it, didn't have a running game. And so I think we're going to get a better running game. We're going to get a better and more consistent passing attack, because you've added weapons to the passing game that's going to help John Mateer be more productive. You have tight ends that are going to be able to block better in the run game. That's going to allow Xavier Robinson, Torrey Blaylock to be more productive. And as we talked on yesterday's show about the physical maturation of the offensive line, that's going to happen this offseason, which is going to help your running game be better.
So I'm curious, who's more likely to be successful going into next season? Which group see success? The quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Who do you think is the most likely one to see a big jump from last year to this year, or just a jump?
Oh man, I'm going to say wide receivers. No. Yeah. I think, you look at the 3 that are going to potentially start for you, and I think all 3 of those guys could go for over 600 yards. Where this year you only had Isaiah Sategna was the only one that went for over 600 yards.
He was.
I'm looking at it real quick. And no, I mean, Deion Burks had 620. So, and then Jaren Kanak had 533.
They were right there at the cusp with him. Right.
Yeah. I just think that you'll be able to have 3 guys that are legitimate weapons for you. John Mateer is going to go for over 3,000 passing yards, and you're going to see that wide receiver group elevate its game. Let's just say, I believe in Trell Harris and his ability to be more of a do-it-all wide receiver than Deion Burks. Like, Burks has the playmaking ability. It was just too much of a roller coaster ride. Some of it was maybe usage and how they decided to use him. And he's not really a guy that is a possession style receiver that you want to use going over the middle as much. He's a downfield threat, and they didn't give him a lot of opportunities at that. But I think Trell Harris can do a lot of really good things for you. I think Parker Livingston, he could replicate Jaren Canick's production and more, because he's going to get open. He's not going to see a lot of one-on-one coverage, bracketed coverages. He's going to see a lot of one-on-one coverages because of the threat of Isaiah Sategna, the threat of Trell Harris on the outside.
Yeah, I think all three of them it's gonna be tough to double team any of those three, or even bracket either one of them, because they've all proven that they can be threats. Trell Harris has proven he's been threats at an ACC. He was the top receiver at Virginia, who threw the ball a lot. Parker Livingstone is one that's up and coming. He's a fast riser. Plus, he does a really good job of getting open. Just got to get better at blocking, which he can. Sategna, we've watched him all year. So, I was kind of curious about your thoughts there, because that's going to be the biggest question. Which group is the most likely to take the leap if the others don't? And to me, of course, wide receiver is probably the easiest outside of tight end, because you've just made some major changes there with guys that could produce. Rocky Beers is your downfield threat, and then Hayden Hansen is going to be honestly, he could be your pseudo Jason Witten type. Reliable, short pass guy that doesn't get a whole bunch. I mean, I think Jason Witten's career average is 9 yards a catch. So that's it's pretty low for someone that's catching the passes, but it's more so because he was always open at the right spots. And I think that's something that could change. That could be a weapon in Oklahoma's arsenal next year. So we'll see.
Now, the improvement that will be the most impactful, that's the running game, though. Like, if they take a step, that's going to be the thing that opens things up so much more for the rest of the offense. All right, we got a couple more way too early polls to get after. We'll discuss coming up on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out your forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every single deduction. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local tax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. And once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And go check out the Everydayer Club, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer club for more of Locked On Sooners. You can get ad-free audio in Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you like to download and listen to podcasts. You can also get an invite to a members-only chat through a Discord server. So Discord is an app that you can download to your phone or your laptop, and you can interact with Jay and I and many more across the Locked On network for $5 a month or $50 a year. That's the Everydayer Club, where again, you can just talk ball with so many people around the world and across the Locked On network in the Everydayer Club. Again, lockedonpodcast.com/Everydayer Club. All right, Jay, we got some more way too early polls to get into. Let's start with Stewart Mandel, noted Oklahoma hater. Is that too strong of a word?
I guess we could call him a hater.
He's
a noted Oklahoma critic.
Yeah. Shun the unbeliever. Shun.
Yeah, he's a noted unbeliever. But he did give Oklahoma props going into this season that he felt like we were going to improve. So he did say take the over on the win total. I will give him that. But I don't. He's not too high, nor is he too low. Well, yeah, or too low. He brings enough of a logical argument that I can't be mad at him. I haven't seen too many inconsistencies in the way he measures everybody, so I'll give him that. But yeah, he is definitely not a believer. We'll give him that part of it.
Yeah, so he had the Oklahoma Sooners coming in at number 9 in his way too early 2026 rankings behind Oregon at number 1, Ohio State at 2, Georgia at 3, Miami at 4, Texas at 5, Indiana at 6, Notre Dame 7, BYU at 8, and then Oklahoma at 9 and Texas Tech at 10.
Interesting.
BYU at 8.
BYU at 8. That's a fascinating. A lot of people are really, really into the BYU piece, which I think BYU can be good. I mean, see, they lost their DC. They did keep their coach, which is always a plus.
Yeah. Yep.
That's interesting. Of course, Texas, 5.
Yeah. The thing that fascinates me about the Big 12 is, again, they're not really going to play anybody except for Texas Tech plays BYU maybe. And I haven't looked at their schedules yet, but it's favorable scheduling again for the Big 12. And so we're not going to really know what these teams are all about, because we thought BYU was good and they got trounced both times they played Texas Tech, and Texas Tech got shut out by Oregon. So I don't know what to make of the Big 12 and anybody that is going to be considered a contender out of that until we see them against a top Big 10 team or a top SEC team. So that's the only one that I have questions about. Notre Dame is going to get love just because it's Notre Dame. They're like Texas, very much so, in that anytime the media can thrust them into a top 10, they're going to. It's just like clockwork. You're going to see Texas and Notre Dame inside the top 10 when they're good. And Notre Dame's a good team, but I think they get the benefit of their brand, much like the Dallas Cowboys get the benefit of their brand often, and maybe a little bit more overrated at times than they should be.
Yeah, BYU, let me see, they play Notre Dame at home this year. They've got...
We'll find out pretty quick.
Yeah, we'll find out very quick, actually, right? Because that will most likely be a quote-unquote top 10 matchup at that point. Mm-hmm. It depends if they make it through Iowa State, in which they should. Iowa State's a full refresh. They travel to TCU. They got Arizona at home, Colorado State, UCF on the road, Arizona State at home, Utah on the road. So you got the Holy War in November, which is very disappointing that they do that. I know they do it for a reason, but it's like, do that Thanksgiving weekend like everybody else. That would be so much cooler, right?
Well, I mean, Greg Sankey in the Big 12, not Greg Sankey, sorry. Brent Yormark in the Big 12.
Disrespecting Paw?
I apologize, Paw. Don't take me off the nice list. Brent Yormark in the Big 12 did that to Oklahoma too. They put Oklahoma and Oklahoma State on like the first weekend of November one time. And I was like, what are we doing here? Why is this? Alive. Yeah. Anyway. He likes to spread out his rivalry games so that they all get a little bit of play, which I think, okay, you could say that that's smart marketing, but when it comes to rivalry weekend, dude, everybody's tuning in no matter what.
Right. Now, unless you've got something in there that's the reason why you do it. So like, for example, Georgia and Florida do theirs midway because of, I think there's something going on in that area that they're doing it, but at the same time, Georgia has Georgia Tech on Thanksgiving and Florida has Florida State. So they've got other rivals that they need to accommodate for. It was Oklahoma, Texas, because it's in the middle of the fair on purpose. Yep. And then it used to be Oklahoma State at the end of the year, Texas A&M, which now that tradition's back. Oklahoma State has not come back yet. So that won't be there. But yeah, you would like to see more of that. But I'm not mad at Stewart. I mean, this is basically what he said He said Oklahoma made it to the college football playoffs despite a limited offense, which is very fair. Material will hopefully be healthier, while Sategna, Harris, and Livingstone, which is 965, 847, and 516, are formidable receiving trio. The running game remains a concern, and we talk about that. If the running game shows up, different game. And then Brent Venables' top 10 scoring defense loses standout in R. Mason Thomas, but bring back some of its best playmakers, and they added, Big Ten star Cole Sullivan, and Sandell won the Lou Groza Award. So, truth be told, you get the kicker back that won the award. You bring in a linebacker to help, with Kip Lewis, who's returning. So that's pretty solid. And you lose two guys, but your young guys are coming up. I've been hearing great things about James Nesta. Watch out for that. Watch out for that name. Watch out for what he could possibly be. Then R. Mason Thomas being gone. Taylor Wan did a great job of stepping in for him as soon as R. Mason was out. Now you just need the other edges to do something to go with it. And I expect PJ or Danny to become that dude, you're good to go. Like,
Mhm.
I see why he gave us the number 9. The question is the run game. If the run game does produce, John's going to put up numbers. John's going to probably put up 3,000 yards next season. He put up 2,800 with a messed up thumb. He'll do 3,000 next year, especially based upon who we play against. If the run game shows up, John, there's no excuse not to get back to 10 or if not 11 wins and make it back to the playoffs.
Yeah. And the other part of that is living up to expectations and living up to the hype, right? They were a team in 2023 where they started the season off great. What was it? 7-0 after beating Texas, and then kind of snuck by UCF and then lost back-to-back games to Kansas and Oklahoma State. And then your season it didn't derail. You were able to rebound and get to 10 wins, but you missed the college football playoff when it was all right there in front of you. And so going into a season in 2026, when you're expected to be a top 10, top 15 team at minimum, it's about then living up to those expectations, living up to the hype, and still grinding, still being that tough nose to the grindstone team that you were in 2025 when you didn't have any expectations, or you had minimal expectations, right?
Yeah,
this was a team that they were outside of the coaches poll. They were in the 20s in the AP poll in the preseason. So you had a lot to prove. Well, okay, you've proven it, and now you've got to prove it again. You can't rest on what you did in 2025. You've got to go do it again in 2026 to earn your spot back.
Exactly. Just got to do it again. And John, I think they can do it. So this year is a year I'm not concerned about us repeating at least what we did last season. Yeah. Mainly because, barring injury, knock on wood, this team should be able to go out there and do the exact same thing they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to Oklahoma's leadership to make sure that everybody understands the assignment.
Yeah, and we let's talk about that tomorrow, because I have something to say about what Oklahoma needs to do in order to understand what the assignment is.
Let's go. We'll do that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Sooners. Coming up next, Trinidad Chambliss is expected to get his waiver for another year. What could that mean for an important Oklahoma Sooner? Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So one of the biggest stories of the offseason so far has been the waiver application of Trinidad Chambliss. Now, it was denied by the NCAA. His appeal was denied. He filed a lawsuit in Mississippi to get an injunction on his behalf. And it's looking like, according to multiple reports, that things are trending very positively for Trinidad Chambliss to return in 2026. And everybody in the Grove celebrates down there in Oxford, Mississippi. Oklahoma will have to face Trinidad Chambliss once again. Maybe a little redemption on the plate. But, Jay, this could potentially mean some good news for Owen Heineke.
Yeah, it could. I have questions about this Trinidad Chambliss, if they're actually going to get the injunction and actually get a waiver, if the lawsuit would work. It feels like the NCAA is going to find a way to win this battle, because this is a battle they have to win if they, want to be success. Now, Chambliss' situation is a lot different than the one that Diego Pavia was able to get approved. Mm-hmm. Remember, Diego Pavia played in JUCO, and that was their argument, is that one shouldn't count against you. Chambliss played D2. Now, he may be able to get that to work. And in his suit, he's arguing he only played in 23, 24, and 25. And I don't know how that's going to work in his argument, because if it really was true that he wouldn't have been credited for any other years before that, right? He may not saw the field, but he was on that team, and he was a part of those scholarships at Ferris State. It's going to be tough to be able to appeal that. Same thing with Owen. They're taking, I guess, the 15 minutes or whatever, or however time he played lacrosse. They use that as a year of eligibility because he played in the sport. It doesn't sound like lacrosse has, especially at this level, has redshirt rules. So you play, it counts. Sucks. Totally get it. It's going to be tough to be able to argue on that he deserves another year of football when he played a different sport. that's where that challenge is going to come in making that argument against an attorney. Now, they filed this in Mississippi, so of course they were going to win the injunction. It's in Mississippi.
Yeah.
What would you expect? If it get bubbled up higher to higher courts, very good chance that bad boy gets completely denied. And I think the NCAA is banking on that. And one last comment on this, though, John. I find it fascinating that we keep running across these. And I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't think this is a good thing for the players. You would think I'd say the NCAA, but no, I think this is actually a great thing for the NCAA because this is a great argument for them going to Congress to say, see, we allowed them to try to self-regulate and they couldn't do it. If we put rules in, it keeps coming back to you anyway. So why don't you just make a blanket rule in our favor and we can end all of this? They're taking notes of every single one of these scenarios, and they're going to use every single one of these as ammunition to point out that if y'all put the blanket out there for us, we wouldn't be dealing with this. We wouldn't be wasting y'all's time in the courts. Can y'all do something about this? That's why they keep letting this stuff go. That's why they keep allowing these fights to happen, because they know that they can use this later on against us, which sucks.
So, it's interesting because Congress has very much been hands off on a lot of the things NCAA. Now, there have been people that have been outspoken, Congress people from across the country about the issues with NIL and the transfer portal and all that. But nobody really wants to tackle any of this because they don't want to piss off their constituents, especially their big money donors that will have vested interests in their college football programs being able to go spend big. So there's a lot of regulatory issues at hand from state to state, from, a national perspective, from university to university. You can't treat the Power 5 or the Power 4 plus Notre Dame like you do the G6. You can't treat the FBS like you do the FCS. They're different games. But I wonder how much the NCAA is going to be willing to fight and how high they'll be willing to fight. Because I feel like in basketball, they've got bigger fish to fry right now. Like you've got dudes that have signed professional contracts coming to play college ball. That's totally, to me, that's a bigger issue than guys trying to get a medical exemption year.
No, and I agree, but I think that's also by design by them, right? They're allowing and they're quote unquote entertaining these in a way to where they're not shooting them down because they need this ammunition to win their arguments later with all the Congress people saying, look, you see how this is becoming a circus? If y'all would have just made the blanket, they're basically gaslighting everybody. If y'all would have just made the blanket, we wouldn't be here. This would all be gone, but we can't do anything. Woe is us, the NCAA. We have no power, even though we have all the power. Yeah. To me, if they would have just went ahead and knowing this was going this direction, instead of saying, we're going to be hands off and look, we'll allow certain things, but here's some rules and hopefully you don't try to circumvent them or find loopholes. If they just walked and say, you know what, we're going to put together the structure. We're going to pay the players. We're going to make it so we can pay the players and we're going to put together the structure. They should have known regardless they were going to get sued. Mm-hmm. And everybody's going to try to see how far across the line they can go. People are habitual line steppers. You know this. That's especially what they do. Sport. Exactly. The big money donors have been this way for years. Like, I think the funniest thing about donors and or whatnot when it comes to these sports is they're literally people talk about ROI and all that. They don't care about ROI. You know what their ROI is, John? Their ROI is that they can have bragging rights to the next dude that's also making billions or millions of dollars next to them. That's it. It's always been that way. That's why you have money in the bag where people are willing to break the law to get a kid to go to their school. They don't care about ROI because their only ROI is wins. And there's no guarantee you can get wins regardless of who you put on a roster. We've seen that this season. Shout out to Kurt Sategna. I'm going to keep giving him props because he deserves it. Yeah. You can't guarantee it. So they're basically, they don't care. They're throwing money. There's no such thing as ROI when it comes to NIL and all of this stuff. They don't care. So that's the one thing we need to get out of the era or whatnot with this. for the NCAA, if they would have just went ahead and put together a true plan and put together a true structure, we wouldn't be here. But they're not. They want somebody else to do it. They're passing the buck on. And that's probably the thing that annoys me the most about the way that they're going about this. Why are we passing the buck? Put your big boy pants on and get in the office. You know you're going to get sued regardless. So have a plan. That way the lawsuits are stupid. But like you said, you've got professionals trying to come back. It's like, I'm going to be irreparably harmed if I can't leave the G League and come back to Alabama.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
You're playing pro ball now. You playing at Alabama ain't going to help you get drafted again.
Yeah. Dude, it's time for you to go to Europe. It's time to go to Israel, Australia. Like, go find a professional league somewhere else, because it's ludicrous. Really, what needs to happen and what may come down the pipeline eventually is an antitrust law that allows the NCAA to kind of have some more ammunition to not get sued left and right. Because I think that's the difficulty, is they've got so many lawsuits that they're part of, and there's always the threat of another that you can't fight on multiple fronts. It's just really difficult to do that. So we'll see, man, whether it leads to an Owen Heineke extra year or not, whether he decides, hey, you know what, I'm just going to go to the NFL anyway, because according to his interview with Oklahoma Breakdown, he's already training for the Senior Bowl and the NFL Scouting Combine, where he'll probably test incredibly well. So we'll see, man. The future of college football is still kind of murky, but hopefully at some point we'll get some more guidelines on the eligibility rules, because a guy like TJ Finley playing 7 years, like, dude, you can, I get that. That's great. I'm glad that you can, but at some point we've got to move on. We all have to. So
yeah, we gotta be done.
That's it. All right. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Go check out the Locked On Everyday Club for $5 a month, $50 a year to get ad-free audio, and also an invite to a members-only Discord app where you can chat with Jay and John, and you can ask us questions that we will feature here on Locked On Sooners. And
I will fight you.
You can, I don't fight anybody. And
I fight, but John will.
Jay's a fighter. I'm a lover. And you can go and you can discuss sports across every major sport with hosts from all over the Locked On network. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner.